Lawyers of the New Patriotic Party have raised serious doubts about the membership of the plaintiffs seeking an injunction to stop the party from going ahead with the Congress in October. Lawyer Godfred Dame says they are not competent and fit to execute such an action because they failed in the affidavit to provide details of their membership. Also, they have failed to justify how the fixed date causes injury to their person, as it's been argued by their lawyer. Well, the MPP say the suit is a show of bad faith. My colleague Anil Sabote has been to court today, and we are gonna have him join us on the line. So when we have him, we'll put him on the line, and then we'll get to hear exactly which other issues went down beyond the fact that the case has been adjourned to October 3 this year. Now, over 1 million cards issued by the National Identification Authority will go waste as the authority plans to replace them with new smart cards expected to have expanded features and information. The authority is reported to have negotiated for a 115 million facility from Exim Bank China, awaiting cabinet and parliamentary approval to implement this new project. Well, my colleague Kwabena Boateng Chenchehine was in town today, and he spoke to members of the public to solicit their views on what they think about Ghana having numerous identity cards.
Ima, the national identity card, I was wondering, do you have one?
No, up to now I'm not getting mine. Up to now, since I went to the office, they were asking me to pay 10 cedis before getting it.
They asked you to pay 10 cedis before they give you your card?
Since then, I've not followed up.
Did you ask what that 10 cedis is going to be used for?
I don't need it, so I don't want to go further anymore to ask.
Which office are you talking about?
I went to the one at Spina, something like that. That's
Spina?
Yeah, that's where their office is.
There's a national identity, okay.
Their head office is over there.
And they asked you to pay money, 10 cedis, before they give you your card?
Getting in the card. But since then, I'm not getting mine. But all my family members have got their own. My friends, they have got their own, but up for me, since up to now.
So it means the cards are available, but they're refusing to give it out unless you pay them something. That's what you're saying?
I don't know. Maybe that's what they need or something like that. So that's what you can see.
But what do you make of that card in general? Is it really serving its purpose? Is it of use? Is it relevant?
For me, I don't see even the reasons about it. Because maybe if they say national identity card, going somewhere have to show that maybe you are Ghanaian or something like that. Fine, it's okay. It's very good that if you travel to somewhere, they will show you this, you are Ghanaian. You are not a citizen from here. It's okay. But bringing it out and it's giving a problem that paying money or maybe we cannot get it or something like that, it's very difficult. Because I wake up that day, I quite remember when I was in school, I wake up around 3:30 a.m. to go and form a lie before getting that thing. Up to now, getting it is very difficult. For me, if it comes like this, I'll not waste my time to go and do it again because I don't see the use about it.
But let's say probably they are encountering some challenges or difficulties. That's how come they've not been able to get it across to as many people as possible. Now they are saying they are going for a loan facility, about $115 million US, so as to enable them do what they're supposed to do. What do you make of it? Is it a waste of resources?
What I would say is the money they spend first, is it waste? Or what about that money? Because they pay money for those who came to work, and we are going to get another loan to do such a thing again. It's very waste. If it was me alone, I should have tell the president or the government that he shouldn't do it, because going to borrow money from somewhere, paying interest again. What about the first money they paid? This morning I was saying in the news that they said they are going to do a new one again. It's very waste. For me, I don't see any use about it. Borrowing money, coming to do this thing again and all that.
So what do you make of proposals that we should have a harmonized system where one card cuts across? If I have one card, I can use that to vote, I can use that to check my health status and go for health checkups, I can use that same card to identify that I'm a Ghanaian. What do you make of that?
What I'll say about that, we have national voters ID card.
You know, but the cards are getting so many. They are about 4 or 5 per person. You know, the databases they are just scattered. Wouldn't it be better if you had a centralized database where everything is synchronized in one system?
To me alone, if it's the whole thing to cut off, we just use the voters ID card for everything we do. Going to the hospital, everywhere you go, you use the voter's ID card. Simple. I think that would be okay.
So you are saying we should just neglect this identity card and go for a voter's ID rather?
So that's even the best way, because you used to vote. Anywhere you go, maybe they use a machine to check. Going to the airport like this, if you are going there, if you have a passport, it shows your machine, your details, everything. So using a voter's ID card going somewhere, it's also good. Because the moment you go to somewhere, you bring your voter's ID card, they check the details, your date of birth, your age and everything, it shows up. I'm okay.
Well, let's go back to our earlier story where lawyers of the New Patriotic Party have raised serious doubts about the membership of the plaintiffs seeking an injunction to stop the party from going ahead with the Congress in October. We're joined on the phone lines now by my colleague Anil Sabote, who was in court earlier on today. Ani, so what culminated into this particular position of the MPP lawyers?
Well, okay, friends, good afternoon. First of all, I must say, for example, that this particular gentleman, and I've had a suit, challenging the legitimacy of the national executive of the party from going ahead with the October 18th. And the argument is that it is not fair, it disadvantages some of the, however, lawyers for the MPP, that's the lawyer for the MPP, Godfrey Damin, question, even first and foremost, their legitimacy as members of the party. Are they members of the party or just some faceless characters who have been kind of mobilized by faceless people to come and disrupt an exercise that started somewhere in June? That the October 18th is just a finality of that. Again, he also described these people as incompetent and busybodies who are up for mischief and are showing bad faith, because if you look at the party as the MPP, they have mechanisms or they have structures that they expect every member of the party to go through to address problems or grievances. And if indeed these people are indeed members of the party and they have consent and they have failed to even open themselves up to those mechanisms or those issues or those steps that have been made available by the party, and they have failed to even appear before the party to get some of these issues resolved and come to court, then it shows how incompetent, how unwarranted their actions are. And therefore, it feels that in the wisdom of the court, the issue should be completely dismissed.
Now, Ani, what defense did the plaintiffs put up? I mean, what the lawyers of the MPP are saying?
Well, okay, the lawyers for the plaintiff in the person of Eric Atiku argued, for example, that these are members of the party, though he did not show that in his document, and he told the court that he will come back with a subsequent affidavit to support the motion, and that again, these people also stand to lose significantly because they are members of the party at the junior rank, and therefore it is also important their views are considered in the way and manner things are done within the party. Again, he also mentioned a portion of the Constitution that says, for example, that the National Delegate Conference or Congress to elect a flag bearer shall be held somewhere December. However, the party is doing that October 18th, which is a clear violation of the party's constitution. And for them, they feel that, just based on these reasons, they feel that these gentlemen are within their right to sue the party to get the issues resolved. However, the law of the party, like I said, Godfrey Damin still maintains that these people have no locus whatsoever to come before the court to even execute an action in the first place.
And so going forward, what happens to the case? I know you mentioned to us earlier on that case has been adjourned and hearing is going to commence when?
Yeah, as of now, ruling is going to be given on the 3rd of October, so next month on the 3rd.
Right.
The ruling will be given.
Okay,
right.
Very well. And we'll leave it here. Thank you very much, Anil Sabote. He was in court. That's my colleague there, giving us an update of what went down with regards to the issue regarding the MPP's Congress in October. Ruling is in October 3, and we'll see how that pans out. Now, let's move to other stories. And the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, as part of measures to rid the city of filth and curb the spread of cholera, has begun an operation to clamp down on food joints which operate under unsanitary conditions. Well, the Assembly on Thursday closed down some food joints in Osu and cautioned 2 others after it was discovered that the operating conditions of these restaurants were not up to standard. Earlier the same day, the authority closed down about 30 traditional restaurants popularly called chop bars for them at operating at Agbogblosh. And Joy News' reporter Kwabena Boateng Chenchenhine again was at the market to find out what patrons of these chop bars make of the move by the Accra Metropolitan Assembly.
The Accra Metropolitan Assembly, together with the Public Health Directorate on Thursday, closed down some notable food joints in one of the capital's business centers, Osu. The authority closed down the Dynasty Chinese restaurant and cautioned 2 others, Noble House Chinese Restaurant and Frankie's Hotel, as part of moves to fight cholera by cracking down on unhygienic restaurants, eateries and chop bars in the capital. Prior to Thursday's action, the Accra Metropolitan Assembly had carried out a similar action at the Agbogbloshi market. The Assembly on Thursday closed down about 30 traditional restaurants operating under unhygienic conditions in the area. Patrons of some of these chop bars who spoke to me revealed that though they agree with the act by the AMA in principle, much more needs to be done by the Assembly.
Nti for said one year gusu pa wo ba no wo hwe no waduane no enye papa a hotia wo tumi hwe egu na nansa se wo hwe bi gu ye
nti o mu hwe egu sa no enye ka no mo de bonkrofo na o mai sa
ende on abo wonka pa se won so obi aye ne nkwan kase na wo ba no ka bibi tire no o we bi a hanye neat nti bi ama hanye neat na ofiti prekupe na wudu na butu woso kofi aduane bia na wokwa akodi nti wonne na ansan wo bo wonka pa.
So that's a lady there. She says she's been trading here for some time now, and she spends virtually the whole day here in the market. So she eats here, she buys food from here, and she says recently she had a bit of a tummy upset, and later when she went to the hospital, she was told that it was something related to cholera, but she's thankful to God that she was able to decipher and find out.
And apa ebedidi, ewia ebedidi, and ibunu su ebedidi. Ebi wa ko ebedidi wa ya kofi aye ndidi biem. Enti ya papa ne de oba I say obeye yi ni mu. Na enso no kwan a wo fa so wo ye no enye krofo yoma wo kekegu wo de wetietia so aye na ya homete.
Na say unim say baby onu aduane na enye papa na obe no aduane.
Me fra so say de bi ote enye papa na say oye dey wo yi wo fi ho. Ebi say gota obe hu na obi ton ade wo be hu gota na obi didi wo ho enye ni na say mwa na obesisi so na wo ya ede yare na wo kana be bampa enti de ya papa no so ye no mi de me ebi wo mu a me pe ne sa
na say wo fo na so say onko so an
so ma wa na wo kwan ho na wo ye yi no onyi wo nyina mfi wo na kwan ne mu nda wo na fi na e aba wo ha na do so agogoro chi ade efi wo ha nkasa enti e say wo man na ni da wo na o hwe wo na wo prepra no wonu mu na say o ma wani ye dey e wo ho say munye wei yemfa ha yemfa ansana bibia ye na ye na ye tia de bia ye na ye pra ha ni ye de makaya bola nti ye sre no o ma won ani wo wana wo prepra no ma ye
So yes, an interesting revelation there. This lady is telling me that yes, even though she agrees with what the mayor is doing, obviously to rid the city of filth, it seems to be the case that there's much more the mayor should be focusing on, particularly with regards to filth in this particular area. She says that most of the time they have to come here and do their own sweeping, even after they have paid tolls. Some food vendors who shared their thoughts with me seemed to have similar views.
Some besha na higher knitting.
Mfefo na omuba ya omubse omunema pamopamo no na sena na tibianity
oh ho no mudi mini baby omuko se mi omu andru mi ha nti mini omu nyina ya nya adwin baako na yesiesie baby ayeto ade no na ho nya nita betimi atrase
na wohwa omu anti ya se omunema enye kan ya bo ka o nti wohwa omu fa nkokota na omu nkotwima nsum bia na
oh enu die enye se yense omu niam se yeni omu kasa wo no mo siesi omu nti we die enye se omu di be court se de bia no krofo na omu yi omu se omu siesi ha no se omu mra no omu siesi mu omu mma wo na ya kasa na ye niam bi wa ye nya we container obeba be sisa bola no se ye siesi ha no
Senya we ana we sie na we sie enye ntie bia ye ni sei ana ye ni sei ni said petu prayer no won be hwehwe gudi ase na wona ma aboka sa de se enye onipa wa ko to niam na wa be ye nti se wo ba be hwe gudi a wa ma na boka
Nti omo mpe kwan bi so mfa nye musika mfiri AM4 ha na.
Sane aban no ntimi ntua okasa. Ne se kana no babo. Pe bia de wo hwa ese wudi wo huni. Wani huni a yare nti wo hwa ese wudi wo huni. So wo ho no wadi wo huni a. Wa yo bibia kesi a wo ba ye mu gina ha se fin bi ye ni ha. Nti ma wo se fin ni ha. Ni se fin wo ho de a se na enye.
Meanwhile, the assembly is expected to continue with the exercise today as it moves through some other prime areas in the capital.
And now the Institute of Economic Affairs is calling for more powers to be vested in the presiding officers over and above the security personnel at various polling stations during elections. The recommendation, which is part of the electoral reform project being championed by the Institute in conjunction with political parties, representatives and other election stakeholders, said security at the polling station must be under the command of the presiding officer and not the security personnel. In a statement, Dr. Ransford Jampo, a senior research fellow at the Institute and of Political Science and a political science lecturer for that matter at the University of Ghana, said the recommendation in part would prevent the responsibility of incumbents using the police and other security agencies to intimidate prospective voters at the polling station during elections. Closely related to this recommendation, the IEA says all election-related offenses must be prosecuted by police without explicit instruction from the Attorney General. Dr. Jampo further noted that Section 46 of Act 284 of the Representation of People's Act, which requires the written consent of Attorney General before prosecution of persons involved in electoral offenses, should be amended to allow the police to carry out prosecution of all electoral offenses. Well, let's get more on this as we're joined on the line by Dr. Osu Mensah, Isaac Osu Mensah. He's a political science lecturer at the University of Ghana. Doc, thank you very much for joining us. First of all, what do you make of this particular proposition by the IEA?
The proposition that the returning officer, the
presiding officers be empowered and cater for security matters for that matter.
No, if you look at the rules guarding elections, the presiding officer is the person in charge of the polling station. All other staff in the polling station are under the control of the presiding officer. However, when it comes to security matters, you cannot give that security power to the returning officer as well. My concern is that assuming somebody is misbehaving and the presiding officer goes there, to push the person, for instance, out of the place, you cannot come back and do your work as expected of you. So my wish and my thinking is that the current status quo should be maintained. However, the presiding officer should be able to direct the security agent, look, this person is misbehaving. Can you please take control of that person? I have personally been a presiding officer before in a polling station in the 1992 presidential elections. And in that election, I remember there were some instances whereby some youth were misbehaving. And I instructed the security officer, who was a policeman at that time, and he acted upon my instructions. So I don't think that the presiding officer should be given any other power again as far as security matters are concerned.
Okay, it's clear your position on exactly how the presiding officers can work closely with the police, for instance, to ensure maximum security at the polling station. But going on, when the question of the powers of the presiding officers is being put out there, exactly how can we, as a nation or the election stakeholders in elections, exactly how can we see to it that the presiding officers are empowered or have more powers?
Well, I don't know how much power we want to give to the presiding officers again, because the law is clear that the presiding officers are the representatives of the chairman of the Electoral Commission, who is the returning officer for the presidential election representative on the ground. Every other staff, including the police or the security agents, including the polling assistants, and even the polling agents representing the parties, are all under the control of the presiding officer already. So I don't know what power against.
So the presiding officers doesn't need any much more power as been proposed?
I don't think that the presiding officer will give any more power. They have enough. And also it depends on who is the presiding officer and how he or she conducts himself or herself in relation to the security officer on the ground.
Okay, now let's look at the security forces that will be at the polling stations. We heard the IEA, for instance, talk about the power to prosecute and all that. Exactly how does that come to you?
Can you repeat the question?
I was saying that we've heard the IEA, I'm talking about the police, for instance. The IEA mentions that more powers be given them so they can go on ahead and prosecute miscreants at the polling centers. Now, I would want you to reconcile this with statements like, now that the Supreme Court has ruled, as far as the election petition is concerned, elections should be won at the polling centers. How do you reconcile that statement with what the security agencies can do at the polling stations?
Good. The security agents have a responsibility to maintain peace and order at the polling station. Now, with the powers that are given to them now that we must win election at the
polling stations,
of course, people will make sure that they do everything they can to win the election at the polling station. But it's important for all of us to also remember that election is not a do and die affair. If you want people to vote for you, the most important thing for you to do is to campaign well and to do well. That's the most important. But coming back to the direct question that you asked, I personally think that the security officers, their mandate is to maintain sanity at the polling station. When people are misbehaving, I don't know what type of power you want to give to them, because as far as I understand, and as far as the law is concerned now, the arrangement is that the presiding officer is in charge of the polling station. The security officer maintains peace under the instructions of the presiding officer. Now, if there's a youth group that is misbehaving, the security officer or the youth, there are some party people who are misbehaving, the presiding officer have a duty to instruct the security officer, look, check these activities going on there. Number two, if you think that you cannot, let's call reinforcement to come and check that.
But if we talk about the police, the IEA, for instance, talks about some sort of amendment that will see to it that the police can carry out prosecution of all electoral offences. How is that possible?
Well, that's the question I also. Because you're talking about prosecution, that means that somebody has misbehaved, trying to steal a ballot box or trying to do something, and then that person is carried to the. What is a criminal matter already? So it's already a criminal offense. So if somebody is trying to do it's already a criminal offense, and you can already prosecute that person. You see, I know IEA is trying to do well as far as this electoral reform issues are concerned. But the point of emphasis that I have said, and I'll keep saying, is that we should not rubbish what we have. We need to have a critical analysis of what we have first before we try to put a lot of this on board. A lot of the issues and what people call reform output in inverted format are already in existence. Just that we have to enforce and to the latter, and I think that we shall have the best system we want to have. Okay,
very well. Dr. Isaac Osu-Mensah, thank you very much for talking to us here on News Today here on Joy News. He's a political science lecturer with the University of Ghana, and he insists that we shouldn't necessarily have any electoral reforms, but stick with what we have and work on them. Now, let's move to some other stories. And as part of efforts in preparing Ghana against the deadly Ebola virus, the Norwegian government has supported the country with $1 million.
We are fearing that these three countries that are really hit by the epidemic will be very much set back in their economic development. We have also seen that with proper preparedness, what we saw in Nigeria and Senegal, it is possible to control the disease, to avoid the disease of coming into the country at large. And for Ghana, or for West Africa, if this disease should come into the general population in Ghana, we would enter into a situation that is so dangerous for the whole West African region, because Ghana is the beacon of democracy and economic development. Let me say this, I really hope that this money that we are contributing will be used in a very good way, but the effects of the money will not be necessary. there won't be any disease in the country. There won't be any need for what we have done, but we need still to be prepared, and we need to do this up front.
Since the outbreak has been declared by WHO as a public health event of international concern and reiterated by the second meeting of the International Health Regulations Committee, which took place just last week, Ghana is at risk of having an imported case due to the fact that it is an international transportation hub within the West Africa sub-region. It is for this reason that the national authorities have developed a preparedness plan which WHO and other partners are helping to implement.
We don't have an excellent system, but we have systems in place that we are strengthening every day so that we'll be able to pick in case there is any importation to this country.
Thank you very much. Thank you.